Bank manager tore up a black man's $3 million check. Then her boss called him sir. The sound of the check tearing was sharper than anyone expected. It cut through the polished silence of First Meridian Bank like dry cloth ripping in a church. Once, twice, then a third time. $3 million became 6 white pieces between the red-painted fingers of branch manager Catherine Whitmore. Across the marble counter, the black man who had handed her the check did not raise his voice. He did not reach for the torn paper. He simply watched the pieces drift onto the glass between them. Around the lobby, conversation slowed. A printer stopped humming. A security guard shifted his weight near the entrance. Catherine lifted her chin. "I told you," she said, loud enough for the waiting customers to hear. "We do not process fraudulent instruments here." The man's name was Marcus Reed. He wore a weathered navy work jacket, dark jeans, and boots with dried concrete dust pressed into the seams. His hands were broad, scarred across the knuckles, the hands of someone who had spent years lifting steel, repairing roofs, and carrying burdens no suit could measure. He looked down at the torn check. Then he looked back at Catherine. "You could have called the issuing bank," he said. His voice was calm. That calm irritated her more than anger would have. "I don't need instructions on how to run my branch." Marcus nodded once. Behind Catherine, the glass doors to the executive corridor opened. A gray-haired man in a charcoal suit stepped into the lobby, saw Marcus standing at the counter, and stopped so suddenly that the assistant behind him nearly collided with his back. The color drained from his face. He hurried forward, not toward Catherine, toward Marcus. "Mr. Reed," he said breathlessly. "Sir." The entire bank went still. Catherine's hand remained suspended over the torn pieces. The gray-haired man looked at the ruined check, then at her. "What?" he asked, his voice turning cold. "Have you done?" 3 hours earlier, Marcus had been standing beneath the rusted steel beams of the Eastbrook Community Center, watching morning light pass through holes in the roof. The building had once been a school gymnasium. Before that, according to a brass plaque near the entrance, it had served as a shelter during the winter of 1958. Now, its basketball court was warped from rainwater. Its heating system coughed black dust, and 3 windows had been covered with plywood for nearly 2 years. But every afternoon, children still came. They came because Marcus kept the doors open. They came to finish homework at folding tables, to practice basketball beneath a hoop tilted slightly to the left, to eat sandwiches made by volunteers, to sit somewhere warm while their parents finished late shifts across the city. Marcus stood in the center of the damaged court with a clipboard tucked beneath one arm. Above him, a drop of water formed on a ceiling beam. It fell. The drop struck the floor inside a yellow bucket with a hollow metallic note. Plink. Marcus looked toward the far wall, where 16-year-old Jamal Carter was painting over graffiti. "You missed a spot," Marcus called. Jamal leaned back, studied the wall, then rolled his eyes. "You say that every time. And every time, there's a spot." Jamal found it near the bottom corner and covered it with gray paint. Marcus smiled. He had known Jamal since the boy was 11, when a police officer had brought him to the center after catching him sleeping inside an abandoned bus. Jamal's mother had been working night shifts at a nursing home. Their electricity had been disconnected. The boy had been too embarrassed to tell anyone. Marcus had not asked questions that night. He had heated soup. He had found a blanket. And the next morning, he had driven Jamal home. That was Marcus's way. He helped before he judged. He listened before he spoke. He had learned early that people rarely needed another person explaining how they had failed. Most needed one person willing to stand beside them while they tried again. A side door opened, letting in a gust of cold October air. Elaine Brooks entered carrying a cardboard tray with 2 coffees. At 64, Elaine had silver curls, a quick smile, and the permanent posture of someone who had spent 30 years teaching children to sit straight and think clearly. She handed Marcus a cup. "You haven't eaten. That's not coffee. It has milk. That's still not food." Elaine looked up at the leaking roof. "Did you sleep?" Marcus took a sip. "That sounds like 2 questions. It was 1 accusation." He gave her a tired smile. For 6 months, Marcus had been trying to save Eastbrook. The city had declared the building unsafe unless major repairs began before winter. The estimated cost was $2.4 million. Another $600,000 would fund programs, staff, insurance, and food for the next 3 years. Exactly $3 million. A number so large that Marcus had stopped saying it aloud. He had written grants, organized fundraisers, met with churches, contractors, nonprofit boards, and city officials. He had stood in rooms where people praised his mission, shook his hand, promised to call, and never did. Still, he kept going. He had been raised 6 blocks from Eastbrook by his grandmother, Lillian Reed, a hospital laundress who saved coins in a blue ceramic jar. She had never earned more than $26,000 a year, but she always found money for another child's school lunch, another neighbor's medicine, another winter coat. When Marcus was 9, he once asked why she gave money away when they had so little. Lillian had placed a warm hand against his cheek. Because having less doesn't mean being less. He remembered that sentence whenever donors looked past him. He remembered it whenever contractors assumed he was maintenance staff. He remembered it whenever someone spoke slowly to him, as though dignity depended on vocabulary, clothing, or complexion. Elaine touched the clipboard beneath his arm. Is that the final repair estimate? Marcus nodded. And we're still short. How short? He drank his coffee. $3 million. Elaine stared at him. All of it. All of it. She looked across the court at the children's artwork taped along the wall. Paper suns, crayon houses, uneven letters spelling words like hope, family, future. What happens if we don't get it? Marcus followed her eyes. The city closes us in December. Elaine lowered her voice. Have you told the kids? No, Marcus. Not. Until I have to. The front door opened. A courier wearing a green jacket stepped inside, holding a thick envelope. Marcus Reed. Marcus raised a hand. The courier crossed the court, checked his identification, and handed him the envelope. The return address belonged to Hollis, Grant, and Pierce, one of the oldest law firms in the state. Marcus frowned. He knew no one at that firm. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a letter, a copy of a trust document, and a cashier's check. He read the letter once. Then again. His face did not change, but his fingers tightened around the paper. Elaine stepped closer. What is it? Marcus handed her the letter. She read silently. The money came from Samuel Bell, owner of Bell Industrial Supply, a regional construction company founded 48 years earlier. Samuel had died 3 weeks before. Marcus had met him only once. 2 winters ago, Marcus had found an elderly man sitting alone at a bus stop during an ice storm. The buses had been suspended, but the man had no phone and refused to enter the nearby shelter because he was trying to reach his wife's grave before sunset on their anniversary. Marcus had driven him to the cemetery. He had waited in the freezing rain while the old man placed white roses against a granite headstone. Afterward, he had taken him home. Marcus never knew the man was wealthy. He never asked for his name beyond Samuel. He never told anyone about the drive. But Samuel had remembered. According to the letter, he had quietly investigated Eastbrook Community Center and Marcus's work. In the final amendment to his charitable trust, Samuel directed $3 million to the center. Elaine reached the final line and covered her mouth. Jamal noticed. What happened? Elaine looked at Marcus, tears shining in her eyes. Marcus stared at the check. $3 million. Enough to repair the roof. Enough to keep the heat running. Enough to hire counselors and tutors. Enough to keep the doors open. For a long moment, no one spoke. Another drop of water fell into the bucket. Plink. Marcus finally exhaled. Looks like we fixed the roof. Elaine laughed through her tears and wrapped both arms around him. Jamal dropped the paint roller and ran across the court. What? What happened? Marcus held up the check. We're staying open. The boy's eyes widened. For real. For real. Jamal threw his arms around Marcus so hard the coffee spilled onto the floor. Within minutes, the building filled with noise. Children cheered. Volunteers cried. Someone played music through an old speaker. Elaine began calling board members. Jamal stood on a chair, announcing that Eastbrook would soon have a roof that did not rain indoors. Marcus stayed near the center of the court, holding the check in both hands. He should have felt victorious. Instead, he thought about Samuel Bell sitting alone at the bus stop, ice gathering on his shoulders. Kindness often traveled in silence. Sometimes it disappeared into the world and was never seen again. Sometimes, years later, it found its way home. By 11:30, Marcus had gathered the trust documents, his identification, the center's nonprofit records, and the letter from the law firm. Elaine insisted on driving him to the bank, but one of the center's vans had a broken fuel pump, and she needed to supervise the afternoon program. You should change clothes, she told him. Marcus looked down at his work jacket. Why? You're depositing $3 million. The check doesn't care what I'm wearing. The check might not. She left the sentence unfinished. Marcus understood. He had spent his whole life understanding unfinished sentences. He drove his 12-year-old pickup downtown. First Meridian Bank occupied the ground floor of a limestone building with brass-framed windows and a revolving door polished bright enough to reflect passing traffic. Marcus had opened the Eastbrook account there 7 years earlier because the branch advertised community partnerships and local investment. The lobby smelled of lemon polish, paper, and expensive perfume. Sunlight poured through the high windows and spread across the marble floor. Marcus stepped into line behind a young couple applying for a mortgage. At the counter, 2 tellers worked beneath hanging lights. A security guard stood near the door. His eyes passed over the customers, paused briefly on Marcus, then moved on. When Marcus reached the counter, a teller named Priya Shah smiled. "How can I help you today?" "I need to deposit a check into the Eastbrook Community Center account." "Of course." He placed the check and documents on the counter. Priya read the amount. Her eyebrows rose, but her expression remained professional. "I'll need to verify this with a supervisor." "I expected that. May I see your identification?" Marcus handed it over. Priya checked the account records, compared signatures, and began entering information. Then a woman's voice came from behind her. "Priya, stop." Catherine Whitmore crossed the lobby in narrow heels. She was 46, with carefully styled blonde hair and a navy suit that matched the bank's executive branding. A silver nameplate identified her as branch manager. She looked first at Marcus's jacket, then at his boots, then at the check. "What is this?" "A deposit," Priya said. "I can see that." Catherine picked up the check by one corner. Her gaze moved across the printed amount. $3 million. She gave a soft, humorless laugh. "Where did you get this?" Marcus met her eyes. "It was issued by the Samuel Bell Charitable Trust." "I asked where you got it." "From the trust law firm." Catherine examined the check again. She did not look at the accompanying letter. She did not look at the nonprofit documents. She looked at Marcus. "Do you have an account here?" "The community center does." "Are you employed by the center?" "I'm the executive director." Something flickered across her face. Disbelief, quickly disguised as procedure. She turned to Priya. "Has this been authenticated?" "I was about to call the issuing institution." Catherine placed the check flat on the counter. "No need." Priya hesitated. "Bank policy requires verification for." "I know the policy." Marcus saw Priya's jaw tighten. Catherine folded her hands. "Mr. Reed, transactions of this size require supporting documentation and a verifiable source." Marcus slid the letter toward her. "It's all there." Catherine did not touch it. People produce letters. So call the law firm. People also provide false numbers. The firm's public number is on its website. A few customers turned slightly. Not enough to appear curious. Enough to listen. Catherine's mouth thinned. "Do you understand how unusual this is?" "What part?" "A $3 million check being brought into a retail branch." "It's a bank." "That is not what I mean." Marcus waited. Catherine looked toward the security guard. "Do you have another form of identification?" Marcus placed his passport card beside his driver's license. "Any evidence that you are authorized to act on behalf of this organization?" He opened the folder and removed the board resolution, naming him executive director and authorized signer. Catherine glanced at the first page. "How long has this organization existed?" 23 years. "And you expect me to believe someone gave it $3 million? Marcus felt heat begin to gather beneath his collar. Not rage. Something older. The tired heat of being asked to prove not only the document, but the possibility that someone like him could be trusted with it. He kept his voice level. "You don't have to believe me. You only have to verify the check." Catherine looked at Priya. "Run the account history." Priya typed. "The account has been active for 7 years. No overdrafts. No return deposits. Regular payroll and vendor payments." "What is the current balance?" Priya hesitated. Catherine repeated the question. $14,812. Catherine looked at Marcus again. The number seemed to confirm something in her mind. A $14,000 organization does not suddenly receive $3 million. A $14,000 balance, Marcus said, doesn't tell you the size of the organization. It tells me enough. No, it tells you what was in the account this morning. The security guard moved closer. Not aggressively, but enough for Marcus to notice. Catherine noticed him noticing. Her posture strengthened. Mr. Reed, I'm going to ask you one more time. Where did you get this check? Marcus looked at the trust letter resting untouched beside her hand. I helped a man 2 years ago. He remembered. Catherine stared at him. That's your explanation? That's what happened. He gave you $3 million because you helped him? He gave the sinner $3 million. What kind of help? Marcus paused. He thought about Samuel at the cemetery. White roses trembling in the rain. That's private. Catherine's expression hardened. Convenient. Priya spoke carefully. Ms. Whitmore, we can verify the routing information in a few minutes. Catherine's eyes snapped toward her. I said no. Marcus looked through the glass wall behind the counter. Several employees had stopped pretending not to watch. A man in a gray business suit whispered something to the woman beside him. She glanced at Marcus's boots, then at the check, then away. Marcus knew the scene being built around him. Not by facts, by suggestion. A black man in work clothes. A large check. A manager asking questions. A guard standing near. People did not need to hear an accusation clearly. They assembled one themselves. Marcus placed both palms on the counter. Please return the check. Catherine did not move. I'm retaining it. You have no reason to. I have reason to suspect fraud. Based on what? Based on the circumstances. What circumstances? Catherine lowered her voice, but the lobby had become so quiet that everyone still heard. People like you do not walk into banks with checks like this. Priya's face changed. The security guard looked down. Marcus felt the words enter the room. They did not echo. They settled. Heavy and familiar. For 1 second, he saw himself at 12 years old, standing beside his grandmother in a department store while an employee searched her shopping bag after a white customer claimed a scarf was missing. The scarf had been found beneath a display table. No one apologized. His grandmother had taken his hand and walked out without buying the winter shoes they came for. Outside, Marcus had asked why she had not shouted. Lillian had looked straight ahead. Because their mistake does not get to choose who I become. Marcus returned to the present. Catherine held his check. The lobby waited for him to explode. He did not. What exactly, he asked. Do you mean by people like me? Catherine's cheeks reddened. You know perfectly well I mean people who present suspicious financial documents. No. I know what you said. Are you threatening me? I asked a question. The security guard stepped closer. Sir, keep your voice down. Marcus turned toward him. My voice is down. The guard opened his mouth, then closed it. Marcus looked back at Catherine. Call the issuing bank. No, call the law firm. No, return my check. I cannot release suspected evidence. Then document your reason in writing. Catherine gave a short laugh. You don't dictate procedure here. I'm asking you to follow it. Something in her snapped. Perhaps it was his calm. Perhaps it was the attention of the lobby. Perhaps it was the way Priya stood beside her, visibly ashamed. Catherine seized the check with both hands. Priya inhaled sharply. Ms. Whitmore, the paper tore. Once. Marcus did not move. Catherine tore it again. The pieces fluttered onto the counter. There, she said. Now no one will be defrauded. A woman near the waiting area gasped. The young couple at the mortgage desk stared openly. Marcus looked at the torn check. His face remained composed, but his chest tightened as if someone had pulled a wire around his ribs. The money could be reissued. He knew that. The trust was real. The law firm could replace the check. But the paper represented more than money. It was a roof over children. Heat in December. Dinner after school. A promise from a dead man. And Catherine had torn it because she could not imagine that promise belonging in Marcus's hands. He lifted his eyes. You should not have done that. Catherine pressed a silent alarm beneath the counter. Red light flashed near the security desk. The guard reached for his radio. Then the executive corridor opened. The gray-haired man who emerged was Richard Hale, regional president of First Meridian Bank. He had been meeting upstairs with senior officers about the bank's new community investment strategy. He saw Marcus. Recognition struck him instantly. Richard crossed the lobby quickly. Mr. Reed. Sir. Marcus turned. Catherine froze. Richard extended his hand. Marcus did not take it. Richard followed his gaze to the torn check. The pieces lay across the glass like broken white feathers. What happened? No one answered. Richard picked up one piece and read the amount. His face tightened. He looked at Catherine. What have you done? Catherine straightened. I prevented a fraudulent deposit. Richard's eyes moved to the trust letter, the identification, the nonprofit documents, and the check fragments. Did you verify it? The circumstances were clearly suspicious. Did you verify it? Catherine swallowed. No, but did you call the issuing bank? No, the law firm. No, did you review the trust letter? I didn't need to. Richard stared at her as though she had spoken in another language. Then he turned to Marcus. Mr. Reed, I am deeply sorry. Marcus's expression did not soften. How do you know me? Richard looked almost embarrassed. We met last spring at the City Housing Forum. You spoke about converting abandoned properties into transitional homes. Marcus remembered him now. Richard had been one of 40 executives seated beneath bright conference lights. He had shaken Marcus's hand afterward and said the presentation was inspiring. Nothing had come from it. Richard continued. Our board has also been reviewing Eastbrook Community Center for a partnership grant. Catherine's eyes widened. Richard looked again at the torn check. Was this for Eastbrook? Yes. How much? You can read it. Richard's face flushed. Of course. The lobby remained silent. Catherine stepped forward. Mr. Hale, may I explain privately? No. The word landed flat and final. Richard turned toward Priya. Tell me exactly what happened. Priya looked at Catherine, then at Marcus. Her hands trembled slightly. She described the identification, the account records, the request for verification, and Catherine's refusal. She repeated the statement Catherine had made. People like you do not walk into banks with checks like this. The words sounded uglier the second time. Catherine interrupted. That was taken out of context. Marcus looked at her. What context makes it better? She said nothing. Richard's jaw tightened. He faced the security guard. Was Mr. Reed disruptive? The guard shook his head. No, sir. Did he threaten anyone? No. Raise his voice. No. Richard looked at the alarm light. Then why was security summoned? The guard glanced at Catherine. No one needed an answer. Richard removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Behind him, 2 senior executives had entered the lobby. One was the bank's chief compliance officer. The other was general counsel. They took in the scene with growing concern. Richard pointed toward Catherine's office. Ms. Whitmore, step away from the counter. You are suspended effective immediately. Catherine's face went pale. You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious. I have managed this branch for 11 years. And in less than 11 minutes, you may have violated our discrimination policy, evidence handling policy, customer complaint policy, and basic banking procedure. I was protecting the bank. No, Richard said. You were protecting your assumptions. Catherine looked around the lobby. The customers who had once watched Marcus now watched her. The balance had shifted, but Marcus felt no satisfaction. Public shame did not repair private harm. Richard turned to his legal counsel. Contact Hollis, Grant, and Pierce. Confirm the trust and arrange immediate reissuance. The counsel picked up her phone. Richard addressed Priya. Reserve the conference room. Bring every document needed to process the deposit. Marcus closed his folder. No, Richard blinked. Sir, I'm not depositing it here. Mr. Reed, please allow us to correct this. You can't untie what she tied to me in this room. Richard glanced around. I understand you're angry. I'm not angry. That was not entirely true. But anger was not the deepest thing he felt. I'm tired, Marcus said. There's a difference. Richard lowered his voice. Please, give us an opportunity to make this right. Marcus looked at Catherine. For the first time, she no longer appeared powerful. Her shoulders had folded inward. Her lips trembled. Yet even now, her eyes held more fear for her career than understanding of what she had done. Marcus gathered the trust documents and his identification. He left the torn pieces on the counter. The check can be replaced, he said. What happened here cannot be erased that easily. He turned and walked toward the door. No one stopped him. Outside, the afternoon sky had darkened. Rain struck the pavement in small silver needles. Marcus reached his truck, opened the door, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. For several minutes, he listened to the rain tapping the roof. His hands rested on the steering wheel. Steady hands. Scarred hands. Hands Catherine had seen before she saw anything else. He thought of the children cheering that morning. He thought of Elaine crying. He thought of Samuel Bell standing at his wife's grave. Then he thought of the check tearing. Once. Twice. Again. Marcus closed his eyes. His phone vibrated. Elaine. He let it ring twice before answering. Well, she asked. Did they process it? Marcus watched rain slide down the windshield. No, a pause. What happened? They tore it up. Elaine did not speak. Marcus could hear children shouting in the background. Who tore it up? The manager. Why? Marcus looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. You know why. Elaine's breathing changed. Are you safe? The question struck him harder than he expected. Not did you argue? Not did they call the police? Not what did you do? Are you safe? Yes. Come home. I have to handle the check. Come back to Eastbrook first. Marcus started the engine. When he returned, the children were in the cafeteria eating snacks. Elaine met him near the gym entrance. She did not ask for details. She hugged him. Marcus stood stiffly for a moment, then allowed his shoulders to fall. Jamal watched from across the room. What happened at the bank? Marcus stepped back. There was a problem. With the money? The money is safe. You sure? Yes. Jamal studied his face. Did somebody disrespect you? Elaine looked at the boy. Marcus could have lied. Instead, he nodded. What did you do? Jamal asked. I left. Jamal frowned. That's it. That's not nothing. But they can't just do that. No, so make them pay. Marcus looked toward the children eating at folding tables. A little girl was dividing one cookie into equal pieces for her two younger brothers. What would that fix? He asked. It would teach them. Maybe. You always tell us to stand up for ourselves. I also tell you not to become the thing that hurt you. Jamal folded his arms. So you're just forgiving them? Marcus looked at him. Forgiveness and accountability are not enemies. The boy's expression softened, but confusion remained. Marcus understood. At 16, justice often looked like someone else suffering. At 42, Marcus had learned that real justice was harder. It required truth, repair, change, and sometimes mercy without surrender. That evening, Richard Hale called 7 times. Marcus did not answer. The law firm confirmed the trust by email and offered to issue a replacement check the next morning. News of the incident might have remained inside the bank if not for the young couple at the mortgage desk. The woman, Sophia Martinez, had recorded part of the confrontation after hearing Catherine's repeated accusations. Her video captured Marcus asking for verification. It captured Catherine refusing. It captured the tearing of the check. And it captured Richard Hale entering the lobby and calling Marcus sir. Sophia posted the video online with a simple caption. He brought documents. She brought assumptions. By midnight, it had been viewed 80,000 times. By morning, nearly 1 million. Local reporters gathered outside First Meridian Bank. Civil rights organizations requested an investigation. Customers posted stories about being treated differently at the same branch. Former employees described complaints that had been ignored. Catherine Whitmore's actions, once protected by polished walls and institutional silence, were now visible. Marcus woke before sunrise. He sat at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee and watched the video without sound. The camera angle was unsteady. His own face looked calm. Catherine's hand moved. The check tore. He turned off the screen. At 7:15, someone knocked on his door. Richard Hale stood on the porch beneath a gray umbrella. Beside him was a woman Marcus recognized as the bank's general counsel. Richard removed his hat. Mr. Reed, I know I have no right to arrive unannounced. Marcus looked past them at 2 black sedans parked along the curb. Then why are you here? To apologize without a camera. Marcus considered closing the door. Instead, he stepped onto the porch and pulled it shut behind him. Rain drifted beyond the awning. Richard held a leather folder, but did not open it. I reviewed the branch footage, he said. Every minute. And there is no excuse. No. Our investigation found that Ms. Whitmore had received 2 previous complaints involving discriminatory treatment. Marcus looked at him. What happened to those complaints? They were categorized as customer service misunderstandings. By whom? Richard's face tightened. Regional management. You? Not directly. But beneath you? Yes. The answer sat between them. Richard looked older than he had the day before. Marcus saw exhaustion beneath his eyes, but he refused to mistake exhaustion for repentance. The powerful often grew tired when consequences finally reached them. It did not mean they understood those who had carried the harm. Richard continued. Catherine has been terminated. Marcus said nothing. We are commissioning an independent review of every complaint from this branch over the last 5 years. Because the video went viral? Richard hesitated. The video forced us to confront a failure. No. The video forced you to confront it publicly. The general counsel lowered her eyes. Richard accepted the correction. Yes. Rainwater gathered along the edge of the awning and fell in a steady line. Marcus folded his arms. What do you want? We want to honor the check immediately. We also want to donate an additional $1 million to Eastbrook Community Center. Marcus's expression did not change. Richard opened the leather folder. There are no conditions. There are always conditions. No publicity requirement. No naming rights. No control over spending beyond standard charitable reporting. Marcus looked at the documents, but did not take them. You think money makes this clean? No, then why offer it? Because harm should cost the institution that allowed it. Marcus studied him. For the first time, Richard's words sounded less rehearsed. The general counsel spoke. Mr. Reed, the money is not intended to purchase silence. Your legal rights remain fully intact. Marcus looked toward the street. In the neighboring yard, an older man in a robe pulled a plastic cover over his bicycle. Ordinary morning. Ordinary rain. Yet somewhere beyond the block, millions of people were watching Marcus's worst moment and deciding what it meant. What happens to the employees who ignored the previous complaints? Marcus asked. Richard answered carefully. Disciplinary review. That means nothing. Then tell me what would mean something. Marcus turned back to him. You train people after scandals. They sit in hotel conference rooms. They watch slides. They sign forms. Then 6 months later, everyone returns to normal. Richard did not argue. Marcus continued. Bring your managers to Eastbrook. Richard blinked. What? Not for a photograph. Not for a volunteer day with matching shirts. Bring them for 6 months. To do what? To listen. Marcus pointed down the street toward the community center, though it was several blocks away. Let them sit with families denied small business loans. Let them meet people who stopped entering banks because they were tired of being followed, questioned, or spoken to like criminals. Let them help teenagers understand credit before those teenagers sign contracts designed to trap them. Richard listened. Marcus's voice remained steady. You want to invest in the community? Then stop treating the community like a risk category. The general counsel slowly closed her folder. Richard nodded. All right. Marcus studied him. You agreed quickly. Because you're right. That didn't help yesterday. No, Richard said. It didn't. Silence settled beneath the porch roof. Then Richard reached inside his coat and removed a sealed envelope. The replacement check. Marcus did not take it. Deposited directly into the Eastbrook account. At First Meridian? At another bank. Richard's face showed disappointment, but he nodded. Of course. Marcus stepped toward the door. Mr. Reed, Richard said. Marcus paused. Richard's eyes were wet. The whether from rain or shame was difficult to tell. My father was a factory worker. When I was 19, a bank manager took a chance on me and approved a loan no one else would. I built my life believing banks could open doors. Marcus looked at him. And yesterday? Yesterday, one of ours tried to close one because she didn't like the person standing in front of it. No, Marcus said quietly. She closed it because she believed someone like me could only enter through dishonesty. Richard lowered his head. Yes. Marcus opened the door. Bring your managers Monday at 6. In the evening? That's when working people are free. On Monday, 23 First Meridian executives arrived at Eastbrook Community Center. They came without reporters. Marcus had insisted. They sat in folding chairs beneath the leaking roof while residents told their stories. A barber named Curtis described being asked for 4 years of tax records for a business loan after a white colleague received approval with one. A single mother named Tanya spoke about a teller who announced her overdue balance loudly enough for the lobby to hear. An immigrant grocery owner described signing a loan agreement he did not fully understand because no translator had been provided. Priya Shah attended too. When her turn came, she stood near the basketball court with her hands clasped. I knew what was happening was wrong, she said. I knew before the check was torn. Marcus watched her. Priya swallowed. But I was afraid of losing my job. A woman in the audience asked, so you stayed quiet? Yes. Do you think your silence protected him? Priya looked at Marcus. No, who did it protect? Priya's eyes filled. Me. Marcus stepped forward. Courage is expensive, he said. That's why people praise it more often than they practice it. Priya wiped her cheek. I'm sorry. Marcus nodded. He did not rush to comfort her. Apology needed room to carry its own weight. Over the next 6 months, First Meridian executives returned every Monday evening. At first, they came stiffly, carrying notebooks. Then the notebooks disappeared. They helped residents review credit reports. They created multilingual loan workshops. They rebuilt complaint procedures. They established an independent customer advocacy office that reported directly to the board. Richard Hale attended every session. He listened more than he spoke. The bank's $1 million donation funded Eastbrook's new financial education wing, but Marcus refused to name it after First Meridian. Instead, a small brass sign near the entrance read, "The Lillian Reed Room, having less does not mean being less." Construction began before winter. The old roof came down in sections, revealing pale sky between the steel beams. Children watched from behind safety barriers as workers installed insulation, wiring, and new panels. Jamal became a paid apprentice with the construction crew. On his first day, Marcus found him measuring lumber near the east wall. "You missed a mark," Marcus said. Jamal checked the board. "No, I didn't." Marcus leaned closer. "The measurement was perfect." Jamal smiled. "Not every time." Marcus laughed. By spring, Eastbrook had classrooms, a renovated gym, a commercial kitchen, counseling offices, and a roof that held against rain. The official reopening took place on a bright Saturday morning. Residents filled the sidewalk. Children ran through the new halls. Music spilled from the gymnasium. There were no velvet ropes, no private seating, no executive stage. Marcus stood near the entrance greeting families when a quiet murmur moved through the crowd. Catherine Whitmore had arrived. She wore a simple gray coat and carried no handbag. People recognized her from the video. Some stared. Some whispered. Richard Hale, standing near the financial education room, moved toward Marcus. "Do you want me to ask her to leave?" Marcus looked at Catherine. She appeared thinner. Her hair was no longer carefully styled. She stood alone near the door, uncertain whether to enter. "Did you invite her?" Marcus asked. No, Marcus walked toward her. The crowd's noise softened. Catherine looked at him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she held out an envelope. "This is not a check," she said. Marcus did not take it. "What is it?" "A letter. To me. To the people I hurt." Her voice trembled. "I've spent months trying to understand why I did what I did." Marcus waited. "I kept telling myself I was cautious, that I was protecting the bank, that anyone in my position might have reacted the same way." She looked across the bright lobby of the community center. But that wasn't true. A group of children ran past carrying basketballs. Catherine stepped aside to let them through. "I saw your clothes," she continued. "Your truck through the window. Your account balance. Your skin. I built a story from those things, and then I punished you for the story I invented." Marcus's face remained still. She held the envelope tighter. "I lost my job. My friends stopped calling. My daughter saw the video at college. She asked me if that was who I really was." Catherine's eyes lowered. I didn't know how to answer. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "Why are you here?" "Because apologizing in private would protect me from being seen. And being here doesn't." "No," she lifted her gaze. "I'm not asking you to forgive me." "That's good." Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. "I came to tell you that you were right. The check could be replaced. What I did to you in that room couldn't." Marcus looked at the envelope. Then he took it. Not as forgiveness. Not as absolution. As evidence that she had finally learned to hand over control of the story. Catherine exhaled. "I heard you need volunteers for the adult literacy program." Marcus glanced toward Elaine, who stood near the reception desk watching them. "You think volunteering erases what happened?" "No, then why volunteer?" "Because I spent years deciding who deserved patience. I thought maybe I should start giving it without deciding." Marcus studied her face. There was no performance in it now. Only shame. And something smaller, more fragile. Willingness. "Tuesday nights," he said. 6:30. Catherine blinked. "That's a yes. That's a chance." Her eyes filled with tears. Marcus stepped aside and let her enter. He did not shake her hand. Not yet. The reopening ceremony began in the gymnasium. Elaine stood at the microphone and thanked the residents, volunteers, contractors, attorneys, and children who had kept Eastbrook alive. Richard Hale sat in the third row, not on stage. Priya sat beside Tanya, helping her review documents for a bakery loan. Catherine stood near the back wall, unnoticed by most of the room. Marcus was invited to speak. He walked to the center of the court beneath the new steel beams. Sunlight passed through the high windows and rested across the polished floor. For several seconds, he said nothing. The crowd quieted. He looked at the children sitting cross-legged in front. Then at the workers whose hands had rebuilt the building. Then at the executives who had finally learned that listening was not the same as waiting to speak. 2 years ago, Marcus said, I helped a man get somewhere he needed to go. The room remained still. I didn't know his last name. I didn't know what he owned. I didn't know whether he could ever do anything for me. Marcus looked toward the plaque bearing his grandmother's words. I helped him because he was cold. His voice softened. That should have been the end of the story. In the back row, Richard lowered his head. But kindness has a way of moving through places we cannot see. Sometimes it returns as money. Sometimes as courage. Sometimes as an apology. Sometimes it returns as a door staying open for someone who was once pushed outside. Marcus looked at Catherine. She covered her mouth. He did not name her. He did not need to. What happened at that bank was wrong, Marcus continued. And what happened afterward matters. But justice is not complete when one person falls. Justice is complete when fewer people are pushed down. The gymnasium was silent. If this moment touched your heart, remember this. Dignity does not come from a title, a balance, a uniform, or the word sir. Dignity was already there. Our job is to stop pretending we have the authority to give it. Marcus stepped away from the microphone. Applause began slowly. Then it rose. Not explosive, not triumphant. Warm. Human. Weeks later, rain returned to Eastbrook. It came hard against the new roof, drumming across the metal panels while children studied inside. No buckets were placed on the floor. No water slipped through the beams. Marcus walked through the financial education room and saw Priya helping Jamal open his first savings account. In the literacy classroom, Catherine sat beside an elderly man named Leon, guiding his finger beneath each line of a job application. She did not see Marcus watching. At the front entrance, Richard Hale held the door for a mother pushing a stroller. No cameras were present. No reporters. No applause. Marcus stepped into the gymnasium. The polished court reflected the soft ceiling lights. A basketball rolled slowly across the floor and came to rest near his boot. He picked it up. Outside, the rain continued. Inside, children laughed beneath a roof built from a dead man's gratitude, a community's endurance, and a painful truth no longer hidden behind glass. Marcus placed the ball in the hands of a little boy waiting near the free throw line. The boy smiled. Marcus stepped back. The ball rose toward the hoop. For one quiet second, everyone looked up, and the roof held.